Shop, my name is Eric. Today we have a collaboration with Namoki mods who reached out with their new case. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one, so let's take a look at the Stealth two-tone build. Alright, so for this build, I'm using the NH36 movement since we'll be using a dial that supports both the day and date function. I like to start off each mod by testing the operation of the movement, like the natural date change, quick set change, winding, and oscillation of the balance wheel. I would highly recommend checking your movement before working on it since you don't want to find a problem later on. I also checked the timekeeping on my time grapher, and this movement is running at around plus 8 seconds a day with a good beat error. The amplitude is a bit lower than what I would like, but this is typical for most Seiko calibers. To keep everything looking as sleek as possible, I decided to change out the white day date disc for black ones. Here I'm fitting the movement onto the movement holder. If you don't own one already, a movement holder is an essential tool. It keeps your movement flat and stable, which makes using your tools a lot safer and easier. So the C-clip is removed along the day disc to be lifted off and reveal the top plate. Something that I always advise to beginners is to set all these screws in place, then tighten them afterwards to ensure the parts are seated properly. It's basically like building a bed frame. You don't tighten anything until the frame is put together. Otherwise, you have a squeaky bed, and that's never a good thing. Before the date disc is placed, I always test the date function and clean the top plate so that the date change isn't obstructed. You should be able to fully operate the complication, and if there's an issue, it's probably due to an improperly seated part. Most builds require a day disc for the crown at 4 position, but I need a one purpose for the crown at 3. Make sure you guys get the correct wheel depending on the type of build you're doing. Now the C-clip is pressed back in and we have a completed NH36 movement with black day date wheels. Although it might be tedious, I always test the function of each new part that's installed. With so many components involved in a watch, checking as you go about your build can save you a lot of headaches. To complete the movement, I give the wheels a thorough clean. The dial I chose is an OEM Seiko SRP775 dial. Now this dial is purposed for the crown at 4, so I had to remove the dial feet, sand down the surfaces to ensure it was completely flat, and install it onto the movement spacer with dial dots. Since I'll be using diamond files, I don't want to get small metal particles on my bench, so I cover it up for these tasks. The dial gets placed onto a soft foam surface as I work on the backside. The key is to use small motion and thoroughly cleaning the dial. Getting the alignment right is super important since you don't have any dial feet to rely on. Use the crown, cannon pinion, and day date complication when applicable to get the centering correct. Once that's all done, I give the dial a clean. As for the handset, I chose a gold marine master set. Each hand is carefully placed with my version brass tweezers and pressed on with my version hand press. I frequently get asked if it's better to use tweezers or a sticky tool like Rodico or the version 7007 to pick up hands. Personally, I use brass tweezers because brass won't damage the hands when used properly and provide more dexterity. Following each installation, I check the spacing with a loupe and give the hand a good cleaning. Of course, my OCD forces me to check the operation after each installation, but this is a good practice to follow. Here I'm working on the minute hand and the procedure is the same. Get the alignment right, press the hand in, check the spacing, clean, and test. After all the hands are on, I let the second hand run and check the alignment of all 3 hands. If you're working on a watch, you're constantly checking the alignment and more importantly, how clean it is. Having a clean bench is so important since dust will find its way into everything, including your watch. Now that the heart is complete, we can proceed on to the case. This is the new SNK809 case by Namoki that supports a crown at 3 with SKX style guards. This case can accept all of the parts that are purposed for the SKX, so there are a ton of ways you can go about designing a build. For those who are looking for SKX but aren't a fan of the atypical 4 o'clock crown position, this is a perfect solution and great opportunity to get a custom watch. This case and all of the other Namoki parts can be found by clicking the link in the video description. My version is the PVD matte black case, which fits perfectly with my build design. We can't forget about the drill lugs because I'm sure this build will be a strap monster. I give the case a thorough cleaning and install the chapter ring. This is a matte black chapter ring and I have some double-sided adhesive put on to prevent it from moving around. If the crystal is installed properly, then the chapter ring shouldn't be able to move, and even though there are no indices to line up, I still like to keep everything in place. I give it a good cleaning, install the crystal gasket, and proceed onto the crystal itself. Now this is a clear AR double dome sapphire crystal with no bevel edge. This crystal allows for slope bezel inserts to be used without having a gap between the insert and the crystal. I first place the crystal on as flat as possible, keeping in mind where the crystal is relative to the crystal gasket. If the crystal isn't centered, then you run the risk of catching the gasket when force is applied on top. The installation itself is done with my version 6173 rack press. Although not necessary with this tool, I like to rotate the watch little by little when installing crystals to ensure that the crystal gets seated perfectly parallel to the case. If you're using a budget crystal press, then this practice is a must. Once the crystal is in, I carefully check the seating to ensure that it's perfectly flat. It's then cleaned for any particles that may have made their way inside. I like to keep a clean dedicated piece of Rodico just to clean the underside of the crystal. Rodico does get dirty over time, which could lead to more dust to enter the case. Now we move on to my favorite part, casing the movement. This is where the watch really starts to come together and it's already looking pretty awesome. As for the crown, I chose to use a gold signed as crown with coin edge knurling. The NH36 stem is placed into my version pin vise to be cut, filed, and cleaned for the crown. It's important to smoothen out the edges where the cut was made so that the crown can comfortably screw into the stem. If the edges are rough, then you can potentially cross thread the crown and render it useless. I forgot to record the blue Loctite on the threads, but this is to prevent the crown from ever unthreading itself. Once that's assembled, the crown gets placed into the watch and I check the operation, so hand movement, day-to-day changes, and winding. I also make sure that the crown touches the case when it's fully screwed down. Now that the crown assembly is done, I remove the part in order to lubricate the crown gasket. This oil is purposed for crown gaskets since it has a thicker consistency than the lubricant that's used for case backs and bezel gaskets. The crown gasket just needs some additional moisture protection since it is frequently being used. You can see how thick the lubricant is. Next, I temporarily close the case back without its gasket to work on the bezel mechanism. Rest assured, this is temporary, so I will be returning to this part at the very end. I chose a gold oyster edge or Rolex edge bezel to match the gold accents found throughout the watch. The gasket is removed and lubricated with the thinner oil that I mentioned before. It also cleans the gasket, which makes the action a lot smoother. The bezel is placed on top, then pressed on with a separate press. Once the bezel is clicked in, the seating and action is checked in preparation for the bezel insert. This is when I adjust the tolerances in order to achieve a smooth yet solid bezel action. The insert is a matte black Yachtmaster style insert with polished indices to match the matte black case and chaptering. The bezel is cleaned and the insert is installed, carefully checking for alignment since nobody likes a misaligned bezel insert. And now we can see the build nearly complete. At this stage, I'm checking the watch as a whole, so all the alignments, operation, and internal clarity. Once I'm satisfied, I turn the watch over to move the case back, clean the inside, and lubricate the case back gasket. I chose to use a sapphire display caseback for this build. Even though we don't have some highly finished movement, I still enjoy being able to see the balance wheel oscillating. The caseback is thoroughly cleaned and prepared to be tightened by my version 5700. So what do you guys think? A super clean matte black and gold build that's stealthy and a bit flashy. This custom piece is for sale, so if anyone is interested, please shoot me an email. I want to thank Namoki again for this collaboration and I hope to be able to work on more builds in the future. This build isn't sponsored. Oh. So today's sponsor is Lume. I offer modification services for both existing or complete builds from scratch, like the two-tone stealth build that was shown in this video. So if you're interested in having work done on your watch or want to buy a complete custom watch, please shoot me an email to place an order. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video.